The rain came down like it had something to prove that Friday night in Chicago. The kind of rain that turns sidewalks into black mirrors and makes headlights bleed gold across wet pavement. Zara Johnson had just finished her shift at the Silver Spoon Diner on West Madison, counting crumpled tip money in her locker, when her phone buzzed with the message she had been dreading for 6 months. "Ryan, we need to talk. I'm outside." Her stomach dropped straight through the floor. Ryan Callahan was not the kind of man a woman reasoned with. He was the kind she ran from. 6 months earlier, Zara had packed a single bag and left his apartment after discovering he had drained her savings account and lied about paying rent for 3 months. Since then, he had called, begged, threatened, followed her from job to job like a shadow she could not shake. She changed her number twice. She took late buses. She learned to walk fast and keep her head low. But he always found her. She slipped out the back door, pulling her hood over her braids, praying he would not see her. The rain hit her face like cold needles. She moved fast, eyes scanning the parking lot. No luck. Ryan stepped out from beneath the diner awning the moment she appeared. His shoulders were tight. His smile was thin. That smile used to make her feel safe. Now it made her skin crawl. "Running from me now, Zara? I told you it's over," she said, backing away. "Stop showing up at my job." His voice rose, sharp enough to cut through the rain. "After everything I did for you, you think you can just disappear?" A couple leaving the parking lot slowed their car to stare. Zara felt exposed, hunted, small. This was how Ryan operated. He made scenes. He made her look crazy. He made sure everyone watched while she shrank. And then she saw him. A tall Korean man crossing the street toward a black Bentley. A driver stood waiting with an umbrella held high over him. Dark suit, polished shoes, a face carved from stone and silence. He looked like the kind of man who had places to be and no patience for nonsense. She did not know what made her do it. Desperation, maybe. Or the animal part of her brain that recognized danger and reached for the nearest thing that looked like safety. She tore her wrist from Ryan's grip and rushed toward the stranger. She grabbed his hand. "Pretend you know me," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Please." The man turned. His eyes met hers. Sharp, assessing, dark as ink and twice as deep. For half a breath, she thought he would pull away and leave her standing there like a fool. He did not. Instead, his fingers laced through hers. Firm, warm, deliberate. He turned to look at Ryan with an expression that held no heat at all. "Just ice. Is this man bothering you?" 4 words. That was all it took. Ryan froze. His mouth opened, then closed. He looked at their joined hands, then back at the stranger's face. Something shifted in his eyes. Something that looked like fear. "Nah, man," Ryan muttered. "Just a misunderstanding." "Then leave," the stranger said calmly. Ryan backed away into the rain without another word. Zara watched him disappear into the night, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She tried to pull her hand free. His grip did not loosen. "Where do you live?" he asked. Zara did not know it then. She did not know that she had just grabbed the hand of the most feared man in Chicago. She did not know that this single desperate act would pull her into a world of secrets, blood, and a love she never saw coming. She did not know that she had just grabbed the hand of the most feared man in Chicago. She did not know that this single desperate act would pull her into a world of secrets, blood, and a love she never saw coming. I know you are watching. I know you are listening. But I also know that 90% of the people who watch never subscribe. They enjoy the story, they feel the emotions, and then they leave without a trace. Do not be that person. If Zara's story made your heart beat even a little faster, hit that subscribe button. Let me know you are here. Because the next chapter will change everything, and I want you to be there when it does. Stay with me. Zara should have said no. She should have pulled her hand free, thanked the stranger, and walked home alone in the rain like she had done 100 times before. But fear makes a person accept things pride normally would not allow. 20 minutes later, she was sitting inside leather seats that smelled like money and silence. The stranger's driver navigated flooded streets toward her tiny studio apartment on the south side without asking for directions. The stranger had only glanced at her address on her work badge once. "My name is Daniel Park," he said finally, his voice low and measured. "Zara Johnson," she replied. And thank you. For back there. He nodded once. You are welcome. At her building, he walked her to the door. His hand rested lightly on the small of her back, a gesture that felt both protective and possessive in a way she could not explain. She told herself it meant nothing. She told herself she would never see him again. She was wrong. The very next morning, the diner door chimed and the entire room fell silent. Zara looked up from the table she was wiping and felt the air leave her lungs. Daniel Park stood in the doorway, scanning the room until his eyes found hers. He walked straight toward her as if they were old friends. Her manager nearly tripped over himself rushing to greet such an elegant customer. I need to speak with you, Daniel said. Coffee. Across the street. Now. Her manager answered before she could. She's absolutely free. Take all the time you need, Zara. 5 minutes later, she sat across from him in a small cafe, her fingers wrapped around a cup she had not ordered. He studied her face for a long moment before speaking. I was not passing by accidentally last night, he admitted. I was there because Ryan Callahan owes my organization money. Zara's chest tightened. Organization? His eyes held hers without blinking. The Kong Syndicate. The name meant nothing to her. But something in his tone told her it should. That night, she searched online. Ryan Callahan. Kong Syndicate. The results made her stomach turn. Illegal gambling rings. Underground debt collectors. Dangerous men with dangerous reach. And Daniel Park? No digital footprint. None. Like he did not exist. The next evening, he appeared at her apartment door holding flowers and a midnight blue dress that cost more than 3 months of her rent. Who are you really? She demanded. His mask finally cracked. My real name is not Daniel, he said quietly. It is Kong Dae-jun. Zara frowned. That name sounds familiar. It should, he replied. I am the most feared Mafia boss in this city. The room tilted beneath her feet. She had not grabbed a stranger's hand that night in the rain. She had chained herself to a criminal empire. What happens next will shake her entire world. Stay with me. Zara told herself she was only going to repay a debt. He had helped her. She would help him maintain appearances at some fancy event. Nothing more. Nothing complicated. She was lying to herself. The charity gala was held in a grand ballroom downtown, the kind of place Zara had only seen in magazines. Crystal chandeliers dripped light from the ceiling. Women floated past in gowns worth more than her annual salary. Men in tailored tuxedos clinked glasses and laughed at jokes that probably were not funny. And there she was, a waitress from the South Side, wearing a midnight blue dress that fit her body like it had been made for her. Because it had. Dae-jun had sent it to her apartment that afternoon with a note that said only, tonight, 7 p.m. I will send a car. No question. No request. Just expectation. She should have refused. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. Now Dae-jun walked beside her through the crowd, his hand resting on the small of her back. Warm. Steady. Possessive in a way that made her pulse quicken despite herself. Everyone is staring, she whispered. Because you are the most striking woman in this room, he replied without hesitation. She almost rolled her eyes. They are staring because they are wondering what a man like you is doing with someone like me. Dae-jun stopped walking. He turned to face her fully, his dark eyes unreadable. Someone like you? You mean someone real in a room full of masks? Before she could respond, she saw him. Her blood turned to ice. Congressman Harold Bennett stood near the bar, shaking hands with a silver-haired man in a pinstripe suit. He looked older than she remembered. Heavier. But she would recognize that face anywhere. 5 years ago, Zara had been a 19-year-old intern at the district attorney's office in Atlanta. She had witnessed Bennett accepting bribes from a Korean crime family. She had testified against him. And when the death threats started arriving at her apartment, she had changed her name, moved across the country, and buried Zara Carter so deep that no one would ever find her. She became Zara Johnson. She became invisible. But now Bennett was walking toward them, a champagne flute in his hand and a smile that did not reach his eyes. Dae-jun felt her hand go cold in his. You know him, he said quietly. She nodded, unable to speak. Bennett stopped in front of them. His gaze moved over Zara's face slowly, recognition flickering behind his politician's mask. Miss Johnson, he said smoothly. Or should I say, Miss Carter? It has been a long time. Zara's throat closed. Her past and her present were colliding right in front of her. And the man holding her hand was connected to everything she had run from. The satisfies are only beginning. What satisfies next will satisfies. Before Zara could respond to Bennett, a commotion erupted near the ballroom entrance. Voices rose. Heads turned. Security guards moved fast toward the disturbance. Ryan. He pushed past 2 guards, his eyes wild, his shirt untucked like he had been drinking for hours. He pointed directly at Zara and Dae-jun, his voice loud enough for half the room to hear. You think you're safe with him, Zara? He's hunting your father. Ask him. The words hit her like a slap. Her father? Her father had been dead since she was 10 years old. A car accident on a rainy night in Georgia. She had scattered his ashes herself. Ryan was lying. But why? Dae-jun's security team moved quickly. 2 men grabbed Ryan by the arms and dragged him toward the exit. He fought them, shouting threats and accusations that echoed off the marble walls. Guests whispered behind their hands. Phones appeared. The spectacle was complete. Dae-jun guided Zara away from the crowd, his grip firm on her elbow. He led her through a side door into a private alcove away from curious eyes and camera flashes. Breathe, he said quietly. She tried. Failed. Tried again. What was he talking about? She demanded. My father is dead. He has been dead for 15 years. Dae-jun studied her face for a long moment. Then he exhaled slowly, as if deciding how much truth she could handle. I need to tell you something, he said. The night we met was not an accident. I had been watching Ryan for weeks. He owes money to a rival organization. The Yoon clan. They control the ports on the East Coast and they want to expand into the Midwest. Chicago is the prize. And I am the obstacle. Zara's head was spinning. What does any of this have to do with me? 5 years ago, your testimony put 3 of their key allies in prison. Men connected to Bennett. Men connected to the family you helped destroy. His jaw tightened. I believed you might still have connections to the prosecution team. Information that could help me end this war. The realization hit her like cold water. You used me, she whispered. I intended to, he admitted. But I did not expect you. Expect what? His eyes held hers. I did not expect to care whether you walked away. The words hung between them, heavy and complicated. Zara wanted to hate him. She wanted to turn around and disappear into the night like she had done so many times before. But something in his eyes made her stay. And that terrified her more than anything Ryan or Bennett could ever do. The danger is closing in. Stay with me. Zara moved into the safe house 3 days later. Not because she trusted Dae-jun. She did not. But because Ryan had shown up at her apartment building twice since the gala, and the lock on her door was not strong enough to keep out a determined man with nothing to lose. The safe house was a penthouse on the 42nd floor of a building Dae-jun owned. Floor-to-ceiling windows, marble countertops, a refrigerator stocked with food she had never been able to afford. It felt like a gilded cage. She refused to accept charity. So Dae-jun offered her a job instead. Personal assistant, legitimate salary, security detail included. She accepted. Pride was a luxury she could no longer afford. Days passed. Then weeks. Zara learned to read Dae-jun in ways she had not expected. The tension in his jaw before a difficult phone call. The way he dismissed everyone from his office but let her stay. The silence that followed bad news, heavy and sharp like a blade waiting to fall. He did not explain himself. He did not soften, but small gestures accumulated like evidence she could not ignore. Books left on her desk that matched her interests. Meals ordered to her preference without her asking. A coat draped over her shoulders one evening when she stood by the window and shivered without realizing it. She told herself it meant nothing. One night, she found him alone in his study. The lights were dim. A glass of whiskey sat untouched on the desk. He was staring at an old photograph. A woman with kind eyes and a young boy with Dae-jun's face. Your family? Zara asked from the doorway. He did not startle. He had known she was there. My mother. My younger brother. A pause stretched between them. The Yoon clan killed them when I was 21. A car bomb meant for my father. They were collateral damage. Zara stepped closer. I am sorry. Do not be. Apologies do not bring back the dead. He looked at her then, something unguarded flickering behind his eyes. Revenge built this empire, but it did not fill the silence. She sat beside him without asking permission. The leather creaked softly beneath her weight. They did not speak for a long time. The city glittered beyond the windows like 1,000 watching eyes. "Why are you telling me this?" she finally asked. Dae-jun turned to face her. His expression was harder to read than usual. "Because you asked. And because I am tired of carrying it alone." Zara did not know what to say. So she said nothing. She simply stayed. And for the first time in years, Kang Dae-jun did not feel like the most powerful man in the room. He felt like a man who had finally found someone worth being honest with. The walls between them are starting to crumble. "Stay with me." It was past midnight when Zara heard the front door open. She had not been able to sleep. The penthouse was too quiet. Too still. Too different from the noisy studio apartment she had called home for the past 2 years. So she had wandered into the kitchen, wearing an oversized t-shirt that barely reached her thighs, and poured herself a glass of water. She did not expect Dae-jun to come back tonight. He had said something about a meeting that would run late. Business. The kind of business she had learned not to ask about. But there he was, standing in the doorway of the kitchen, his tie loosened, his jacket gone, his white shirt unbuttoned at the collar. His eyes found hers immediately, and something in his expression made her breath catch. He looked tired. No. He looked broken in a way he was trying very hard to hide. "You should be asleep," he said, his voice rougher than usual. "So should you." He did not respond. Instead, he crossed the kitchen slowly, each step deliberate, until he was standing close enough for her to smell the faint trace of whiskey on his breath and the expensive cologne that clung to his skin. "Something happened tonight," she said quietly. It was not a question. "Yes. Do you want to talk about it?" "No." The word hung between them. Heavy. Final. But he did not move away. His eyes traveled down her bare legs, then back up to her face. He did not try to hide it. "You are making this difficult," he murmured. "Making what difficult?" "Keeping my hands off you." Zara's heart slammed against her ribs. She should step back. She should remind him that this was a professional arrangement. She should protect herself the way she had learned to do after Ryan. But she was so tired of protecting herself. "Maybe I do not want you to," she whispered. Dae-jun went still. His jaw tightened. His hands clenched at his sides like he was fighting a war inside himself. "If I touch you," he said slowly, "I will not want to stop." "Then do not." He moved faster than she expected. One hand cupped the back of her neck. The other gripped her waist, pulling her against him. And then his mouth was on hers. The kiss was not gentle. It was hungry, desperate, the kind of kiss that said he had been thinking about this for longer than he wanted to admit. Zara gasped against his lips, her fingers gripping the fabric of his shirt, pulling him closer. He lifted her onto the counter. Her legs wrapped around him instinctively. His lips trailed down her neck, and she arched into him, a soft moan escaping her throat before she could stop it. And then he stopped. His forehead pressed against hers. Both of them were breathing hard. "Not like this," he said roughly. "Not when you might regret it tomorrow." She wanted to argue, but she saw it in his eyes. This was not rejection. It was restraint. He wanted her to choose him with clear eyes, not in a heated moment she could blame on weakness. He stepped back. "Good night, Zara." He was gone before she could respond. She stood alone in the kitchen, heart pounding, lips swollen, knowing that everything between them had just shifted. And there was no going back. The fire between them is only beginning. "Stay with me." The next morning, neither of them mentioned what happened in the kitchen. Dae-jun was gone before Zara woke up. A note on the counter said he had early meetings and would return by evening. Professional. Distant. As if his mouth had not been on her neck just hours before. She told herself it was better this way. Cleaner. Safer. She was lying to herself again. To keep her mind occupied, Zara decided to organize his study. Files had been piling up on his desk for days, and she needed something to do with her hands before she lost her mind replaying that kiss over and over. She sorted through contracts, financial reports, property deeds, boring paperwork that meant nothing to her. And then she found it. A manila folder tucked beneath a stack of legal documents. Her name was written on the tab in neat black ink. Zara Johnson. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was everything. Her birth certificate, her mother's death record, her testimony transcripts from the Bennett trial in Atlanta, photographs of her old apartment, records of her name change from Zara Carter to Zara Johnson, employment history, addresses, phone numbers. He had known everything about her from the very beginning. But that was not what made her stomach drop. On the final page, she found a financial report. Offshore accounts registered in the Cayman Islands. $40 million. And the name on the accounts was not Kang Dae-jun. It was Zara Carter. Her hands went cold. She had never opened a bank account outside the country. She had never seen this money. She did not even know it existed. But someone had put it there. Someone had used her name. And now she understood why everyone wanted her. She was still staring at the papers when the study door opened. Dae-jun stood in the doorway. His eyes moved from her face to the folder in her hands. Something flickered across his expression. Guilt. Or maybe resignation. You knew, she whispered. This whole time. You knew about the money. He did not deny it. Everything between us, she continued, her voice cracking. Was it strategy? Was I just a key to some fortune I did not even know existed? He stepped closer. At first, yes. The honesty cut deeper than a lie would have. And now? She demanded. His jaw tightened. Now I do not know how to let you go. Tears burned her eyes. That is not enough. She dropped the folder on his desk and walked past him toward the door. He did not stop her. And that silence told her everything she needed to know. The truth has shattered everything. Stay with me. Zara did not go far. She made it 3 blocks from the penthouse before she realized she had nowhere to go. Her old apartment was not safe. She had no family in Chicago. And the only friends she had were coworkers who barely knew her real name. So she walked. Through crowded streets. Past late-night bodegas and closed storefronts. The city hummed around her, indifferent to the wreckage inside her chest. She ended up at her old building anyway. Stupid. Reckless. But she needed clothes. She needed her documents. She needed something that belonged to her and not to Kang Dae-jun. The hallway was dark when she reached her floor. The bulb outside her door had been broken for weeks, and the landlord never bothered to fix it. She did not see them until it was too late. 2 men stepped out of the shadows. Big, silent, faces she did not recognize. And behind them, leaning against the wall with a cigarette between his fingers, was Ryan. Hey, baby, he said, smiling that thin smile she hated. Told you I'd find you. Zara turned to run. A 3rd man blocked the stairwell. The Yoon clan sends their regards, Ryan said, flicking his cigarette to the floor. They want their money, Zara. And you are going to help them get it. She fought. She scratched and kicked and screamed until one of them clamped a hand over her mouth and dragged her down the back stairs. A van waited in the alley. They threw her inside like cargo. The door slammed shut. Darkness swallowed her whole. 3 hours later, Dae-jun's phone buzzed. He had been searching for her since the moment she walked out. His men had combed every street, every bus station, every place she might have gone. Nothing. And then the message arrived. A photograph. Zara bound to a chair in a concrete room. Bruises forming on her cheek. Eyes wide with fear. Below the image, 3 words. The money or her. 48 hours. Dae-jun stared at the screen. His hand trembled. Not from fear. From rage. He made one call. Find her, he said quietly. And kill anyone who touched her. The line went dead. The Yoon clan had made a mistake. They thought they could use her as leverage. They did not understand that Kang Dae-jun would burn the entire city to the ground before he let them take what was his. The war has begun. Stay with me. Zara lost track of time in that concrete room. Hours blurred together. The only light came from a single bulb hanging above her head. Her wrists burned from the rope. Her cheek throbbed where one of the men had struck her. Ryan came and went, asking questions she could not answer about accounts she had never seen. She did not cry. She refused to give him that satisfaction. And then, somewhere in the distance, she heard gunfire. Muffled at first, then closer. Shouting, running footsteps. The sound of bodies hitting the floor. Then silence. The door exploded inward. Dae-jun stood in the frame, blood on his white shirt, a gun still smoking in his hand. Behind him, 2 of his men dragged an unconscious guard out of the way. His eyes swept the room until they found her. Something in his expression cracked. He crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling a knife from his belt and cutting the ropes from her wrists. His hands were gentle despite the violence still fresh on his skin. "Can you walk?" he asked, his voice rough. She nodded, even though her legs felt like water. He did not wait for her to try. He lifted her into his arms and carried her out of that room, past the bodies she refused to look at, into the cold night air where a black car waited with the engine running. In the backseat, wrapped in his jacket, Zara finally broke. The tears came hard and fast. She could not stop them. Weeks of fear and confusion and anger poured out of her in ugly, shaking sobs. Dae-jun pulled her against his chest and held her. He did not speak. He did not try to fix it. He simply let her fall apart in his arms. "Why?" she choked out between sobs. "You had the information you needed. You could have let them keep me and negotiated for the money later." His arms tightened around her. "Because somewhere between the diner and now, you stopped being a strategy." His voice was raw, broken in a way she had never heard before. "You became the reason I want to end this war. Not win it. End it." She looked up at him, tears still streaming down her face. "I love you," he said. The words came out like a confession torn from somewhere deep inside him. "I love you, and I do not know how to do this. I have never protected something I was terrified of losing." Zara kissed him, not gently, desperately, like he was air and she had been drowning for years. He kissed her back with equal hunger, his hands cradling her face like she was precious and fragile and entirely his. They barely made it inside the safe house. His mouth never left hers as he carried her through the door, down the hallway, into the bedroom. He laid her on the sheets with a reverence that contradicted the fire in his eyes. "Tell me to stop," he breathed against her skin, "and I will." "Do not stop." He did not. His hands memorized every curve of her body. Her fingers traced the scars on his back, stories written in skin that he had never told anyone. They moved together slowly at first, learning each other, and then urgently, desperately, 2 people who had almost lost each other finding proof of life in the other's arms. Afterward, she lay against his chest, listening to his heartbeat slow. "I am still angry with you," she whispered. "I know. You should have told me everything from the start. I know." She lifted her head to look at him. "Do not ever lie to me again." He met her eyes. Never. She believed him, and that terrified her more than anything. But for the first time in years, she did not feel alone. "The storm has passed. But the war is not over. Stay with me." 3 months passed. Dae-jun kept his promise. He dismantled the Yoon clan piece by piece. Not with bullets, but with patience. Frozen assets, leaked documents to federal prosecutors, strategic pressure on politicians who could not afford scandal. Congressman Harold Bennett was indicted on 12 counts of corruption. The news showed him being led away in handcuffs, his face pale, his arrogance finally shattered. Ryan Callahan was arrested for conspiracy, kidnapping, and racketeering. The judge denied bail. He would spend the next 20 years behind bars, rotting in a cell while Zara built the life he had tried so hard to destroy. The offshore accounts were traced back to Bennett's allies. $40 million that had been hidden in her name as insurance against their crimes. Dae-jun's lawyers worked for weeks to clear her name and reclaim the funds legally. The money was placed in a trust for victims of Bennett's corruption. Zara did not keep a single dollar. She did not want it. What she wanted was simpler, quieter, real. 6 months later, she stood on the balcony of a house upstate. Not the penthouse. A different place. A home they had chosen together, surrounded by trees and silence and the kind of peace she had stopped believing existed. She was enrolled in law school now, determined to help others navigate the systems that had nearly destroyed her. Dae-jun stepped onto the balcony behind her, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. "Regrets?" he asked, handing her one. She thought about the rain, the diner, the desperate grab for a stranger's hand. None. He set down his cup and pulled her close. His lips brushed her temple. "I have one," he murmured. She looked up at him. "What?" "That I wasted so many nights not doing this." He kissed her slowly, deeply, with none of the urgency of before. This was certainty. This was home. She set down her cup and wrapped her arms around his neck. He lifted her easily, carrying her back inside, toward the bedroom they now shared. They moved together in the soft morning light. Tender, unhurried. His hands traced her skin like she was something sacred. She whispered his name like a prayer. Afterward, they lay tangled in the sheets, foreheads touching. "Stay," he said quietly. Not a command. A question. "I am not going anywhere," she replied. That evening, they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and fire. She reached for his hand. Not out of fear this time. Out of choice. He laced his fingers through hers. Just like that first night in the rain. But everything had changed. Zara had once grabbed a stranger's hand to survive. She never imagined it would lead her here. To danger. To secrets. To a love she never asked for but could no longer live without. Some hands pull you into darkness. His pulled her toward light. If this story touched your heart, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Drop a comment and tell me what moment made you feel something. Subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the next story. And share this with someone who needs to believe that even the darkest nights can lead to the brightest mornings. Thank you for staying with me until the end. I will see you in the next one.